Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Andy's Music Vault. This is the other leg and the former leg joining me today for this special episode. It's been a while since I've done an original show with a guest, probably a few months or so. So it's an honor to have Mr. David Gargolino join me today on this episode to discuss a couple of things in general. But how are you there, Mr. Former OG?
Hey Andy, how's it going? Just
I'm
enjoying
good.
my retirement, doing my thing, texting the hell out of you too. So,
That's that's
I'm probably the leg that bugs you got, at least
That's
time. I
the,
don't know.
but you know what? I need it because I don't have time to check the forums for the news. So when I get a text from you on our thread, I'm like, okay, there's something we have to keep our eyes out for because it's coming from David. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
That's a hobby of mine, but it's you guys are only two I really share it with. So thanks for bringing me into the fold or keeping me into the fold.
Yeah, it's a lot of activity, man, a lot of activity. So did you before we get into our topic for today, let's just go to Paul for a little bit. Did you pre-order any one hand clapping merch yet?
Yeah, I did the 2 CD on Amazon, and then through Sound of Vinyl I got the 7-inch exclusive. So
Oh, so
and
that was
that's
available somewhere outside of Paul's store. Interesting.
yeah, any of the you Discovery or whatever, the UME. So it's Paul's website, the official website, I think UME, and then Sound of Vinyl is part of that
They're
family.
they're part of that group.
Yeah,
Mm,
which I pretty much did that for the underdub stuff back in December.
yeah. Yep.
Oh yeah, still yeah, it's
Still,
on my shelf
yes, sir.
right here.
And of course, you got those boots, right? You got those boots, which
Oh
you
yeah,
actually ponied up and got the actual legit boots.
I did because I still have vehicles that have CDs, and I guess I could burn them. I'm weird. I like to just have the printed version on a shelf, but I'll buy the official stuff too. I
Of
think you
course.
need I think you need both, whether you had the physical or the digital version as well as the official stuff. It bridges the full story. I get it
Hmm.
from a commercial standpoint. They're not going to include everything that's on the boots, but man, what a treasure trove!
Oh,
No,
especially that first one, the Mr. Claudel one. That really is the home
yeah,
run.
and there's a volume 2 coming apparently since it says it.
Apparently.
So,
How about some of those versions of Girls School, right?
oh man, that gives hope for something that there's stuff out there. The multi tracks are out there, but
Certainly are. Certainly are. But
yeah,
that's the Paul stuff. And our topic today is basically centered on the Moody Blues. But recently, one of the founding members of the Moody Blues passed away about a week ago, and that was Mike Pinder. And Mike was the one of the original founding members of the band, along with Graham Edge, Clint Warwick, and Ray Thomas, in that first incarnation of the band. Before they became worldwide known for why David and I kind of became fans anyway. Although, hey, listen, I know that there's a lot of love for that first album, the Magnificent Moodies. I know it's, do you own it?
well, when Denny passed in December, we kind of talked about it, and you're like, pick it up, and I was like, I had never. I knew they were more of a blues band based, kind of like
Right.
how the Who were in the early days, like R&B. So I found the 2 CD deluxe that came out in 2014 through Esoteric Records,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a lot of stuff on here.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Different versions of Go Now, and I get it. They didn't write it, but that was one of their big hits for that incarnation in that band. And oh man, like we lost a good core of that band as well as the classic era of that band in the last 6 years with
Mhm.
Ray Thomas in January of 2018,
And
Graham in
Graham,
September 21,
a couple of years back. Yep.
and then Denny, and then Mike.
Yeah, think about that. Think about in the last 5 years, we lost just about the core of that band, really, of the original band
Oh, the original,
between
and
Denny,
then
Graham, Mike, and
Clint
Ray.
passed in 2004. But I mean, yeah, I mean, so when they got inducted in the Hall of Fame in 2018, that's just on the heels of Ray passing. Graham, I think, told Justin that he was retiring, and that was pretty much the end of the Moody's. So Justin and John did their individual tours, still going on, but basically that door was shut once Graham retired. So he must have knew his health was declining. But and then I was hearing some things that Mike had onset of dementia.
Yeah, that's what they said, that he had ended up passing, but it was obviously low key, and it was really nice to see. And I'm sure I know you've seen it, and I've seen it too. It was the classic artist Moody Blues documentary from several years back, and they always are so comprehensive documentaries. There's one on Yes, and the Moody's one, you get to hear from everybody in the band, including Denny Lane. To see Mike Pinder give his take, you don't get to see him too often interviewed, and that's a documentary where you can. And Mike was such a influence for the other musicians of the 60s, especially with the use of the Mellotron. I mean,
So, I'll bring that up later. I could bring a touch upon it now. I mean,
please.
When I discovered the Moody Blues, probably in the early 90s from my dad to our children's children,
right.
I got in it, like the sound, we talk about the dated sound, and I think the dated sound comes from this, and that's a band that I'm okay that sounds dated because it's a timepiece. And so there's this huge book.
What's the name of that book? What's it called? It's called Mellotron, the Machine and Musicians That Revolutionized Rock. And who's it written by? Nick Aude. Okay.
Yeah.
That looks like a book worth picking up.
Yeah, so it talks about, Genesis. Yeah, this is up your alley, man.
I gotta get that book.
Yeah, and it's small print, deep reading, and
okay.
So I don't read it from front to back. I just open up any page and just find a chapter. But it talks about the history. So, side tangent, there's documentaries on the Mellotron out there. And so it was created in the U.S. and it was originally the Chamberlain. Well, Chamberlain wanted to get his stuff out worldwide. And so whoever he was working with at the time, they went to England. Well, the guy he was working with kind of, took that design and gave it to someone else, and which became the Mellotron. So there was a dispute where basically Mellotron could sell in the UK and Europe area, and then the US would sell their stuff as the Chamberlain on our side of town. But it goes in such detail, and I bring that up because Mike Pinder used to work for Streetly Electronics, or it might have been another name, but he was one of the engineers from the Mellotron company,
right
before the Moody's, before he joined in '64.
Actually was able to work on building these things. That's why he is such a such an inspiration for everybody.
So that guy was a pioneer, and he had introduced it to John and Paul, and of course they got their own Mellotrons, and the rest is history for that side of town with the Beatles. But that sound basically from the days of Future Past to Mike's end of his tenure. You just hear that was just between the Moog and the Mellotron.
The Moog and the Mellotron, both of those instruments. And I know there was a pretty good documentary on the Moog, which was developed by Robert Moog too. I haven't seen that one yet myself, but I know it's out there somewhere.
But it's Mike Pinder had inspired me through the rabbit hole of the Mellotron, and as his songs have just a deeper feeling to them that I found I gravitated to actually.
They're very and they're songs that are very of the era. The lyrics are very of the era. They're very trippy, psychedelic to the core. I mean, that life's ours for the making. Eternity's waiting for you and me. Right. They're very, and I think about this. Yes, the Moody's are a very dated sound. It's like old school. It's not like listening to the Band on the Run or even Silly Love Songs, which sounds pretty contemporary still, I think. But the Moody's definitely does have a sound where it's dated, it's 60s, it's a 60s sound, but it's okay. And it was such a short window of commercial success from 67 to like really 72. That 5-year run, they had a crazy run of what
7 albums,
the core 7. And the Moody's obviously had their first album, which David just showed you, which was a totally different incarnation. And then Justin Hayward and John Lodge joined the band in 66 and totally changed the scope of the band and what they become. And the three original members roll on with it, with Graham and Mike and Ray. And I love most of Ray's songs are some of my favorite Moody songs, believe it or not.
Yeah.
And he was the flute player.
Did you ever see him live?
I have seen the Moody Blues live twice after Ray Thomas retired.
Yes, yeah. I saw them in 2009. So that was like the 40th to our children's children. And so Graham was still active and doing his parts. But Ray retired in 2002. I think my dad might have seen them in 99 or 2000 with those four guys. Yeah.
Well, of course, the Red Rocks concert is one of their most iconic ones when Ray was still with them from 92.
You know, I still got to pick that up. I haven't. I should. That's one of the few albums I don't have of theirs.
The Red Rocks from 92. Yeah. They had that incredible short run and became kind of on a level of not a Led Zeppelin or even a Who. They were not on that level. You told me that you kind of put them on the same plateau as Procol Harum, but I think they were more successful than Procol Harum, especially in this country. To me, in my mind, they're up there for me personally with the Beatles and the Who. But because they were very commercial of the for those 7 albums. But for me growing up, I mean, it was just like they were inspired by the space travel. So totally, which was of the period. Think about David Bowie, Space Oddity, Wakeman. Everybody kind of did this stuff. They had a song about Elton, Rocket Man.
I was reading that. I think one of the members said this is one of the albums that I think everyone who has records would have on their shelf back in the day, and I think it's true. I don't know how I got this version.
A question of balance. Now, out of the core 7. I enjoy all the core 7, but there's 5 I really think are like from start to finish are great. And maybe the other 2 I have to come around to a little bit. Now, the one you just held up, A Question of Balance, is one of the albums where I'm like, I love, obviously, Question is a huge hit, but the rest of the album, I'm still not there with it. And the same thing with the next album, Every Good Boy Deserves Favor, which has Story in Your Eyes on it and a song called Guessing Game. Maybe you can give me some highlights of some tracks on it. But the other 5, I mean, our start to finish, can't miss for me. But out of those core 7, what's your go-to one first? I knew you were going to say that.
I mean,
I
know this from front to back, and I actually found my record I played as a teenager. That record I couldn't find. I almost was going to throw this away, but it was in my Question of Balance sleeve.
Now, I discovered the Moody Blues through my uncle, who was a huge Moody's fan, and I was older when I made this dive into. I knew their hits, but I didn't take a dive into the 7 albums until probably well into my 20s, late 20s anyway. So, but this album is so peculiar and interesting because there's not a bona fide hit on it, but it's a consistently great record. There's no Question on it, or Story in Your Eyes, or The Nights in White Satin. You've got Gypsy, which was okay, but I mean, I agree with you. To our children's children, and I am so jealous of you. You have that damn 4 CD box set that I should have bought a year ago, and I didn't.
It was a low key, non-US release, and I got it for under 70, I think.
And now it's over 100.
It's out of I'll make you a copy of the 4 CDs. I can't make you a copy of the Blu-ray, unfortunately.
That's okay. But I mean, that thing only came out a year ago, and it's out of print. How does that happen?
But the thing is, In Search of the Lost Chord was a major release in 2018. It got like a worldwide release. That might be out of print now, but
I think that's still available. I saw it on Amazon now.
Okay.
Let me just, because I got to do I got to channel your inner cousin here and go through the discography, like with the albums. So obviously, Days of Future Past is the first one, right?
Yeah.
This is the one that has the London Festival Orchestra, because they couldn't get the London Symphony Orchestra, so they got the London Festival Orchestra. And obviously the big hits on here are Tuesday Afternoon and Nights in White Satin for 67. But as we know, Nights in White Satin really had a rebirth in 72 and became a huge hit 5 years later.
Why was that? I haven't read up on that. Was that
I just know
what was the restrictions on that?
I don't know. I don't know if it was used in a movie or something, but I know that in 72, Nights in White Satin, and they talk about it in the documentary, just exploded again off the charts. It did okay in 67. thematic. I mean, this is talking about the concept album, right of the era of Pepper and everything else. I mean, it's got The Day Begins, Dawn is a Feeling, Morning, Peak Hour. I mean, I saw the Moody's do this in 2017.
Oh, in its entirety?
In its entirety. I saw them
with an orchestra?
With the orchestra, yes.
Ooh, man.
I saw them do that with the orchestra in Homedale, New Jersey. It was a great concert. Even everything, the spoken word, all the spoken word stuff. And Tuesday afternoon. I mean, was this your basic introduction to the Moody Blues too, David, or no?
No, it was
to our children's, which is so, because that wasn't the most commercial album, to listen to.
My dad played the shit out of it on a cassette. Okay. So, and he was interested in space exploration. I mean, so here's a story. Like 17 years ago, I took my first flight for work as an adult. I was scared of planes as a kid. The beginning of the album, I put on my iPod when that plane was starting to take off. That was epic.
Higher and Higher. Of course, yes. David's referring to the track Higher and Higher, which opens to our children's.
And that was like, yeah, it has a heavenly feel to. I mean, it's probably for classic rock, might be my top 5 or 10, but it's not a very popular album of their core. I mean,
no.
But like I could play it front to back. It's almost like the Yes album for me. I just know it like the back of my hand. And I don't know what gravitate. I love space too. I love, so and it was they were inspired by it. To me, it's like the soundtrack to the Apollo space program, but
yeah. I mean, the whole theme of the album does have that kind of travel space thing through it. Higher and Higher, Floating, which is the Ray Thomas song, which I love.
Yep.
Eternity Road, Beyond, Sun is Still Shining. I think it's definitely a grower of an album, but I was late to come around to it. And boy, when it clicked, boy, did it click. And it's consistently start to finish their best album. And I agree with you 1,001% on that.
Yes, to me, other albums have great songs, but front to back, it's not as consistent for me. I mean, I love the other albums. I have to rediscover some. I have them all on CD and some of the deluxe versions, but I just I got to live with some of those again. But yeah, when they became like the pop band of the '80s, it was total like 180 from what.
But did you like that change or no? Kind of like Yes going into 90125 and On Only Heart. Did you like that 80s upgrade sound? Because there's some good albums in that 80s change. There is, and I'm going to talk about one of them later.
Yeah, honestly, I'll be honest. I stopped purchasing. I have I think up to Long Distance Voyager. Okay. I haven't found Octave at an affordable price. Maybe I have it on vinyl somewhere.
You mean on CD?
Yeah, The Other Side of Life. They're 88. The Keys to Kingdom. Basically. I'm not as familiar with that stuff.
No, and I'm not either. Like Sur La Mer is another one that has. I know you're out there somewhere. I think if you're going to go into the '80s Moody's, without question, the one that you have to own is Long Distance Voyager. I think.
That's a great album.
Long Distance Voyager. Okay, so Mike Pinder, who we talked about at the top of the show, he takes a back step. So the Moody's have this crazy, as I talked about, have this crazy success from '67 to '72. Which is why they were considered like gods, which Justin Hayward was that's why they wrote the song "I'm Just a Singer in a Rock and Roll Band," because so many fans were trying to interpret the lyrics of the meaning of the lyrics, and are these guys just savants chanting for are they like gods? And here's them just going, "I'm just a singer in a rock and roll band." On Seventh Sojourn. So they needed to take a pause in '72. 74, you get that fantastic compilation with unique mixes of This Is the Moody Blues, which has crossfades of other stuff. And I'm sure I don't know if you have that on CD or vinyl.
No.
That kind of sums up the first era of the Moody Blues. At that point, they took a break and they come back in 78 with Octave, which Mike Pinder, I believe, that's his last album, right? He was on the sessions.
He left during the making of the album.
Right.
Because he moved to California.
Right.
I'm not so familiar. I mean, I recognize that album cover. I haven't really delved into it. So
there's a couple. There's one or two good songs off the top of my head off that album. One called "Stepping in the Slide Zone," which is a great song, which leads off the album. And then there's another track that they played live when I saw them called Driftwood.
Yeah.
So it's later, it's late 70s Moody. They took a break, they came back with Octave and did that. And then he was there. And then he left. And then at that point, Patrick Moraz comes into the fold of the band. And Patrick's funny. Patrick was the keyboardist on Yes's 1974 album Relayer. And Patrick likes to say in interviews, I'm more known for the 3 years I was in Yes on one album than the dozen years I was in Moody Blues.
Yeah.
And that's a whole other legal affair too, and stuff like that. But just going back into the chronology, you held it up before, and I'm going to find these things on Amazon today if it kills me. You have a box set of their second album, or third album, but second in the core 7, and that's In Search of the Lost Chord. You look at this cover, you're like, damn, that's from the 60s. It certainly is. Dave, that's the fourth. Can you just spin it around?
Sure.
I am green with envy with that thing right now. I want it.
So yeah, you get the original stereo mix, some 68 single masters attached to that first disc. Then you get a new stereo mix on disc 2. Then you get a simple game with the Justin Hayward vocal mix. That's a Mike Pinder song.
That's a Pinder song, which I think you told me that was basically your favorite, right?
One of my favorites, yeah. And then you get like Radio 1, John Peel, Top Gear Sessions, Afternoon Show. And then you get some alternate album mixes for and sessions that close out disc 3. And discs 4 and 5 are Blu-rays. So you get a new stereo mix and the original mix on the album. And then you get a visual content of them at the BBC. So yeah, it's pretty
stacked.
That's
pretty stacked. And I did check Amazon when we were talking the other day. That is still available on the Amazon US store. So I will be grabbing that after we do this. But
I mean, that album cover was pretty as maybe someone under 10 years old. It was like, that's pretty heavy. I don't know. Like, I get it. Birth and death and
death and very 60s. Again, very 60s. There's the back. There's Lodge. There's Mike. There's Justin Hayward in the middle, who became like, the icon.
Yeah.
The sex god. Ray Thomas and Graham. And of course, go ahead.
I'm looking at Ray Thomas, and like these guys look like they're in their 40s, but they're like in their mid 20s during this time period. They're all born in the early to mid 40s, and I'm like, Ray Thomas, I'm like 15 years older than this guy now. I'm like,
I don't look at it, but like they were dressed and designing to make themselves look like they were like 50, but they were in their 20s.
But it's kind of like the Pepper thing, man. From 66 to end of 66 and 67. I mean, the Beatles look like they aged 10, 15 years, and
they did. That was part
that
of the
style.
Look.
Them, yeah,
that's part of the look. Search of the Lost Chord is another iconic album. Of course, their second big hit, Ride My Seesaw. And the Moody's albums, going back to Days of Future Past, this one, they have kind of these introduction opening tracks, whether it's dialogue, spoken word, orchestral over things, or like Higher and Higher on To Our Children. Like it's not just a song. They're concept albums from start to finish, and this is no different. And it kind of opens up. It goes right into Ride My Seesaw, which is that's one of their encores that they used to do.
Oh yeah.
And here's where you kind of get really deep into the trippy lyrics with Legend of a Mind, which is written by Ray Thomas, about Timothy Leary. But then there's things like Voices in the Sky, which is just a beautiful acoustic ballad by Justin Hayward. The Actor, another great one. And then, of course, the Indian influences with Om, right? There's Mike Pinder with Om, of course, and The Best Way to Travel.
But if you see some of the video content, I mean, Graham is going crazy on the drum set. I mean, for Ride My Seesaw, it's just like they were really rocking in that era. Yeah, they're such an incredible band. I hope Justin and John, I wouldn't mind seeing them like come back together and just kind of doing like
a Moody
celebration.
They could do that. I mean, Justin Hayward's touring on his own now, and so is John Lodge. But I think the Moody's are a band now where the two of them could go out there with a backing band and call it the Moody Blues and still sell some tickets. No disrespect to Graham at all, because he was a founding member. But I mean, if you were to tell me that Justin Lodge and Justin Hayward were going to go out with a backing band and call it the Moody Blues and go out on a tour, you know we're going.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that's in the cards now. I wonder if it is.
Yeah, maybe they'll do something for the 60th anniversary of.
Yeah,
Days of Future Past. But
because
you,
I mean, we'll have to see. I mean, I'd like to go see Justin Hayward in a few months in New Jersey. He's playing, and I looked at his set list, and it's mostly Moody's with some of his own stuff, but he's doing basically a Moody show. So I don't
yeah,
know if it's Justin by himself or Justin with a band. I don't know. Probably with a band.
yeah. John Lodge came in through last year. I was tempted to go, but didn't end up going. But I think he was doing one of the albums. I
Mm.
forgot what album, but yeah, I
What,
mean,
what's your
those two
favorite?
guys aren't.
Go
Oh,
ahead. No, go
you
ahead.
go. Justin and John, those two were pivotal on transforming this band. Whether that they inspired the other guys to go deeper into what they're doing, but they made a conscious decision to go, okay, we're going to do something that's a little more unique than what they were doing before.
That's
From a
why they're
blues band,
that's why their story is so interesting because you retain three original members, two new guys come in and change the direction of the band, of which there were three guys from the original band, and they were like, okay, you guys are new guys, and you have ideas, we're going to go on board with you. I think that's, I mean, you can't think of any time in any other band where that's happened, where three founding members brought on two new members and said, we're going to totally change our direction and music and our style.
That's a rarity. You don't see that often from a
No.
commercial band because most bands are established if you're going to get two new members. I can't think of a time where it shifted like that.
Think about the three guys: Graham Edge, Mike Pinder, and Ray Thomas were there, and they I guess they realized that change was coming. 66. That format was great. Okay, there's nothing wrong with having blues as your backing. But look at the Rolling Stones; they were able to go out through the 60s and still
Yeah.
cultivate their sound and change and adapt, but still stay true to their core. The Moody's totally was just like, okay, we're going to just change things up totally and welcome these two new guys on. And I think probably we would have to give credit to Mike Pinder, all three guys, but Mike probably to say the times are changing. I've got this stuff with the Mellotron. I know music is evolving. Let's see what they have to say. And I think you got that with John and Justin.
100. Yeah, you're spot on with that.
I was going to ask you on this album, what's your go-to track? What's your favorite track on In Search of the Lost Chord?
On the album proper. I love Ride My Seesaw, Legend Mine, and God, it's hard. It's just like, to me. So I think this album and Children's, I mean, it's just like it's like you can't pull a chapter out. You got to it's a front to back kind of story.
It is. It's hard to cherry pick when, as we said, they are so thematic, right? I've had this conversation with a friend of mine about Pepper. It's like Pepper tracks on their own are great, but that's meant to be heard through consistently. And I think you could say the same thing for a lot of this stuff, aside from the super commercial stuff like Ride My Seesaw.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah, and I don't think they set out to have this as concept. I mean, maybe inspired by stuff and subjects, but
yeah.
But the fact that it's interesting how these In Search of the Lost Chord and Children's got super deluxe editions. I mean, that's just in the middle of their discography.
Right. And why are those two albums got SDEs? Why?
I mean, in 1969, they had two albums, one in the, I think, beginning of the year and one at the end.
So this one was this one was after Threshold, right? Or before?
After.
Right. I think Threshold of a Dream, which we'll go to next, I think came out first. I believe
Threshold came out, in early 69.
Right.
And then April 69.
Right.
And then Children's November.
Toward the end of the year. So which brings us to the next album. I gotta say, up to Children, and this are like neck and neck for my favorite. I mean, I go back. I'm gonna go with Children, but Threshold of a Dream is right underneath it. I mean, again, the whole, again, it's all continued with this theme here. Trippy. Hey, look at these guys. Look. Even got Tony Clark on there. Rest in peace.
Yeah.
And he of the infamous Take It Tony on Wildlife. It's that same Tony Clark. There are some damn good songs on this album, though. I mean, Lovely to See You, Never Comes the Day, I mean, those are Send Me No Wine. Those are great songs. Fantastic.
So I don't know what's in the pipeline for releases, but yeah, these other 5 albums of that 7 deserve, I think,
They
deluxe
deserve.
editions.
Now, there is a. It's not deluxe, but there's an expanded CD release of Threshold that has some bonus tracks on it.
Yeah, so I think in 0506 I think it simultaneously released some of the stuff on Super Audio CD as well as regular CD, and then stacked some bonus tracks.
Let me grab it a minute, shall we? We're informal here. Let me take a look at it.
Yeah, sure.
Hold on. So this is, I believe, from 08. With some bonus tracks. Let's see. Yeah, this is 2008. Do you have this one?
Yes.
Right. Yep. So that's So, but there's no big deluxe. Like, you've got 2 CDs of some of their other sets, but this did not get a 2 CD set.
Not yet.
Or not yet. And
yeah,
damn, does it need one? Talk about. I think this album might actually be the most creepiest beginning with the with the speed with I think.
Yeah.
I think I am. Therefore, I am. I think. You're like, what the hell am I listening to? And then it builds and builds and builds and builds and goes right into Lovely to See You Again, which is a great way to open up a concert. I think they use that as an opener, which is just an awesome, awesome intro, to an album and perfect for a concert opener.
Yeah.
Too. Lovely to see you again, my friend. Walk along with me to the next pen. Good stuff. And then
absolutely.
I'm trying to think here. And then this has like the whole Have You Heard, The Voyage, more speeches, lyrical stuff at the end of it. But you're right, though. It's hard to pick these apart and just listen to one. You got to listen to the whole thing.
Yeah. And I had like a copy of their like greatest hits, I think, that came out maybe in the 90s. And I forgot what the track listing was on that. I'd be curious to like see what they cherry picked and how they sequenced it.
That's not the very best of the Moody Blues, is it?
Maybe it was like a blue cover.
Yeah, I don't think anything from that. I don't think anything from this album was on that.
Yeah,
it's
because it's hard to like. How do you pull? I don't know. It just seems so.
I mean, well, Never Comes the Day has grown in stature too a little bit. I think as another kind of iconic Moody song. It wasn't a hit. I know it was in that. It's actually the closing credits of that documentary.
Yeah, that's an album I need to kind of explore deeper again.
Oh, you got to check this. You got to dive in with this one again.
Yeah. Now I'm looking at you pulling your CDs out so quickly because you have them alphabetical.
We talked about that.
It's like calculus for me because the moment I pull something out, it's going to be it's like pulling Jenga blocks. Once I pull one, it's all going to fall apart. So,
no, A to Z, man. I got A to Z, as they say in the UK.
Yeah.
They're not in perfect chronology. I have a couple floating that are not where they should be, but for the most part, A to Z, that's where we are. But this should get a 4. This could get an expanded. They all could. Yeah. They really could.
So like I discovered the 7th Sojourn. Sojourn. I had them all on CD, but I really about 2016 dived into it hardcore. Did you? That album is maybe my second favorite. It's
well, that's the one I was spinning last weekend when I texted you. I said, aha, and you were like, that's my favorite one.
Yeah. Lost in the World. I mean, and even the bonus tracks. I mean, so Island was a previous unreleased bonus track, and I think that dated to after this album was made. It was kind of an in-between thing, and they tacked it on. And that kind of could give you some kind of foresight on what maybe would have came if Pender stayed on. But yeah, I mean, all these albums need a deluxe version.
This is one I have to sit with more. I just have to sit with a Question of Balance more. I just do.
Yeah, and I've rediscovered Melancholy Man on that. Man, that is a deep track. I mean,
that's one of the ones.
Introspective.
That's one of the one that's on that's on this.
Okay.
They threw Melancholy Man on the. Did they? Wait a minute. They did not. No, they did. Melancholy Man is. I thought that was on this. See,
You said that's different mixes on there,
there
or
is.
okay.
There is different mixes on here. Yeah, this is worth listening to on vinyl or CD, and this is the only version of CD. I think it's probably been repressed, but I think this is an original pressing
Okay.
of the the old style. But the Question became one of their biggest hits. So obviously, everybody had this album. But
Yeah.
the other tracks on it, I mean, I think and the Tide Rushes In is a Ray Thomas song. I enjoy that one. Melancholy Man is Mike Pinder, as you pointed out. But some of these other songs, I just need to listen to them and get a little more familiar with them, other than like the huge hit, which was Question. And the artwork is always pretty interesting on these guys, of what they were doing. There's Graham.
Yeah, those guys are great on their design and album covers. I mean, it makes you stare at it a little bit longer than you're like. There's so much detail in the album covers.
So much.
Yeah.
Making the next follow-up one again. These are the two that I'm not the most familiar with, but there's individually. I think I like this one a little bit more. The sixth one, Every Good Boy Deserves Favor. Again, The Story in Your Eyes being the big hit on this one. Again, they were trying, I guess, to be a little more rockier in their approach and not so deep. Whereas To Our Children and Threshold they were trying to become more of a band again. It sounds like with some of this stuff. Again, one of my favorites on here is our Guessing Game, a Ray Thomas tune. Ray's songs always have kind of I like to call a medieval quality to them.
Yeah.
They do when you listen to them. They have this kind of lilting medieval Renaissance type quality to them. And that just adds to it.
Absolutely. I mean, their vocals, I'm not sure if they were all singing. Their background vocals are just ethereal. I mean, it's one of the best because that heavenly kind of sound, that atmospheric. You got the main guy singing, but then you got the background vocals, and it's just like, holy crap. I mean, they were great musicians and vocalists.
And the harmony, and think about the harmonies on a song like House of Four Doors.
Yeah.
That's like, angelic, like singing in choir, just on the abilities of those guys as singers, even,
looking on today's production popularity stuff, and you look back 50, 60 years ago, and the 60s were, and I think the Beatles revolutionized writing your own song, producing it, playing it, all that. These guys, I mean, they wrote this stuff. They made it. They wrote, recorded it, and they could sing it. I mean, these guys were professional musicians, and they were so young.
Young.
And to go from 67, is there a 68 album? Or 2 and 69 to 70 to 71 to 72?
Yeah, 2 and 6. Yeah, they didn't do. Oh, no, 68. No, 68 had Lost Chord.
I mean, I don't know if they were touring workhorses. I got to look at their history online, but man, the album was their bread and butter for their profession.
It was, and you got to think too, a lot of this music, to play it live back then, was not easily done. They couldn't play a lot of this symphonic stuff live in 1969, 70 easy. So that's probably why a lot of their sets, and I'd have to look, but I don't know off the top of my head, are probably much more rocking based. Like, because some of this music, it does not. It's not.
How do you reproduce that?
How do you reproduce that in 1970 as a stage act? It's hard to do, So I think that's why they simplified things a little bit, and they could play rockier songs, like It's Riding My Seesaw and I'm Just a Singer and things like that, and Story in Your Eyes and songs like that. And On Question, of course, and then the last of the seventh Sojourn, as David just mentioned. This is the last of the core 7 from 67 to 72, as you see where I bought the record and how much I paid for it. A whopping $2, probably 10 years ago. Lost in a Lost World, New Horizons, For My Lady, Ray Thomas, wonderful song. Isn't Life Strange, You and Me, The Land of Make Believe, When You're a Free Man, and I'm Just a Singer. I mean, I can see why it's your favorite. It's
a good amalgam of everything in one album. You got you know, the deep stuff and then the more popular stuff. I mean, yeah, I love children's, and that's probably my top favorite, but like current moment in time in the last 8-10 years has been the seventh.
Got to be the
So
seventh. Got to be the seventh Sojourn. Yeah, and then they called it a day. They called it a day. I mean, it's a shame that they did, because it would be interesting to see how would they have changed. Would they have become more proggier? Would they have gone the route of Floyd and a Genesis and a Yes? Like how would their sound changed had they not take that 5 year break? Interesting to ponder that.
yeah. So yeah, it's it's sad to think that most of this band's gone. That this band this band retired in 2018, so there was nothing new was going to come out of it. But we're in a weird period now. Just like these guys are
Oh,
in their early to mid 80s, and you're like, that is just so weird, But
well, because we grow up with these people as like icons that are just they're always going to stay, and then sadly time marches on. So we have the music to treasure forever, which is great, and dissect
yeah,
and archival projects like you've shown give opportunities for even somebody who's pretty familiar with the music like me to go dive in with a 4 or 5 CD set with all these outtakes and BBC stuff that I've never heard before.
mhm.
So that's the legacy of the music with any band.
Well, yeah, that's why I love bootlegs and I love sessions that get unofficially released or officially released, because it tells the story of a band from a musical perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's the stories in books, but like all these bands were a business, this is their life. But like to output that much stuff in such a small amount of time, it's a different industry now because people are just touring,
Right,
but
like
back
that.
then,
7 albums for an artist now would be like 20 years.
yeah.
They threw out 7 and 5.
I mean, yeah. I mean, you'd be touring on some of these albums for like 5 years,
And
and
marketing and merchandising. It just was different. It was just a different
it's such a
machine back then.
fast pace, But
Right.
it went from like this, yeah,
Yeah.
it went from like the singles of the 50s to the pop stuff in the early 60s to the rival of the Beatles in terms of the
Album.
album art form, and now it's coming back full circle, kind of more singles and albums here and there, and just people don't have the capacity to absorb an album. They just want it quick, and
That's a
I think a
shame.
lot of bands tour based on their current legacy. But a lot of the Moody Blues would be an indie band now, because I don't think the record label would go, okay, we're
Yeah.
we're going to be patient on. I mean, they did that to Rush back in the day. We're like, we're going to write 2112, even though the last one was similar and you guys didn't like it. We're just going to do that. I mean,
Record companies were much forgiving and they were very liberal and patient with bands trying to find their sound. Moody's, yes, think about it. I mean, they were like,
yeah,
okay, we believe in you. We're not really sure where you're at with it, but yeah, if you want to take 2 or 3 albums to define your sound, go ahead. That would never, I'm an Erdogan Atlantic. I'm thinking just about
yeah,
You're right,
yeah.
yes, but that doesn't happen anymore.
No, and there are still bands out there now that do crazy stuff, kind of in vein of some of these prog bands that you like, but they're not headlining big arenas. They're doing small clubs and
No, or they're dropping EPs. They're
yeah,
not full albums. Or it's kind of a lost art form. I mean, of course you're going to get albums from people who want to, from the Swifties and the Pauls and stuff. But as a band, I mean, look at like our friend Dylan Seavey. He'll drop a single or an EP. It's just not. It's probably not affordable anymore. There's no money to be made in it, but there's money to be made from gigging and
yeah.
merchandise. So that's where the money is now. To
I mean,
spend all that money on studio time for 12
oh,
tracks, it's just not worth it for these guys now.
I mean, from our laptops, we could write an album,
Yeah.
And that's the technology has progressed, and you still have some of the bigger name studios around, but the record labels aren't funding you as much. And yeah, that could be a whole different conversation, just the intertwining of
It could.
the world now. But yeah, a
It's
lot of these bands would be like indie bands now. They're not going to be headlining venues for 50 years.
no. And I think when you listen to the music of the Moody's, it just reinforces that feeling of that because it's such a period specific time. You know, they're a band that I take dives into their stuff every couple of years, and there's only really 7 albums to dive into. So I don't listen to them like with any regularity, like I do with say Paul or Genesis or Yes or anything. But when I do, because to your point, you have to kind of absorb yourself into these albums to kind of pick up the feel of the whole thing. You can't just listen to a track from To Our Children's Children. You just can't do that.
I'm going to
So
listen to Eternity Road and then just whatever.
no, you can't do that. So I think
Yeah.
it's a forgotten era. I would like to see them. I mean, I know they got into the Hall of Fame, which is great. I would love to see a little more love and appreciation shown their way in 2024 somehow, and some through some kind of vehicle on social media or appreciation. I they have their fan base, which is great, but it would be nice to see them celebrate it a little bit more and kind of. I know they're on for you on the Who level. They're not I have them like on my next tier for me, but they should be celebrated. Like the Who do a great job of their marketing and merchandising. It would be nice to see the Moody's get some celebration too and appreciation, whether that's more archival stuff or a tour.
Yeah, I mean they could be what the Who would be if John and Justin continued under that name.
Right.
But it's interesting because the Who, it's like if John and Paul were still alive and they're like, okay, we're going to carry on under the Beatle banner. And that's what the Who has been doing, the last 22 years since John passed. But yeah, it's about the marketing and continuation of the brand. And it was like, it was a very quiet exit of the Moody's. Like you didn't hear anything. And if you read deep enough, like Graham retired and Justin's like, yeah, it's not the Moody's anymore. But the thing was, like, Graham had, like, when I saw the Moody's, and you may have seen it, there was a secondary drummer, so it was like,
and
Graham wasn't going to carry the band for 2 hours.
No, Graham had there was a secondary drummer helping him out as far back as the 90s. Even on Red Rocks there was another drummer.
Oh, okay. So about 30, okay. Early
so he had a guy helping him along for the last 30 years, really, when you think about it. There was always a second drummer. So that's why I kind of think if they were to go out and do their own thing, and they could still pay tribute to Graham and stuff, and by playing his spoken words like they've done, like with like on some of these albums, they could do that still, and maybe now pay tribute to Mike somehow.
So I've been getting
and Ray.
Yeah, I wish they could continue that to keep him in the musical consciousness of the general public. So I've been getting into like the Alan Parsons Project, and it's not the Alan Parsons Project, it's this Alan Parsons Live. But like, I get it, he's the main dude. And the other guy passed about 15 years ago, and they were most of the studio band. But like, he still gets out there under just playing those songs that everyone would know. But I think maybe for the Moody's, it's out of respect for Graham was the last of those 3 guys that were the spirit of the Moody's. But like, I don't know, Justin and John kind of brought the commercial success
to the band.
Band.
They were, they're the guys that were in part a reason why they became huge, and now they're still out there. So if, to my point earlier, I don't think anybody would have a problem with those 2 guys touring. But if those 2 guys said, "Hey, look, there's no surviving members, we don't want to do it," and that's probably where they're not, because they're like, "Look, we weren't the guys that founded this band. Yeah, we helped it along, but I mean, they could do it. I think they could do it."
You got bands like Steve Howe's Yes. So I mean,
let's not go there. And then John Anderson and the Band Geeks, which is basically a Yes concert. It's more Yes than the Steve Howe show. It just is. I know, because I'm seeing 2 dates and 2 concerts in 3 days at the end of the month.
I haven't seen John in 5 years because he hasn't come to the Midwest. But every time he does, in whatever incarnation he's doing. But I saw him with Luke Ponte 10 years ago.
Yeah. Is he coming to the Midwest on this tour?
He might, but he's never hit Michigan. He hasn't hit Michigan since 2019. So, but yeah.
So, moving on. So that wraps up kind of our discussion on the Moody's. And if you haven't, I will send you this digitally if you've never
Sure.
listened to it. So it's different.
Yeah.
There's some different mixes on it. I'll send you a digital copy of this. I have it.
Sweet.
We talked about the passing of Mike Pinder. Also, recently this past week, we lost another founding member of another iconic band, and that is Richard Tandy. And Richard was one of the keyboardists in ELO with Jeff Lynne. And Richard, over the last 15 years or so, kind of rose a little more to prominence because when Jeff Lynne kind of became much more conscious again in the public eye, starting around 2012, when that documentary on him came out, Richard Tandy became like his right-hand man. And if you've seen that documentary, Mr. Blue Sky, Richard's right there with him. And I got to see Richard Tandy play with Jeff in 2016 at Radio City Music Hall. Richard, Richard, if you don't know who Richard Tandy is, whenever you hear ELO and you hear that voice, the vocoder, that's Richard Tandy. At the end of Mr. Blue Sky, when he says, "Please turn me over," that's Richard Tandy. It's not Jeff Lynne. It's also not saying Mr. Blue Sky. It says, "Please turn me over." And I think you knew
that. Yeah. So was he when you saw him at Rail City, was he just doing select dates?
Yeah, I believe so.
So when Jeff brought the band out on a US tour in 2018,
he was already not playing
yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I get it. Jeff's doing going current time. I know Jeff's doing his farewell tour. I probably won't see it because I saw him in 18, and that was the first time he was touring in like 37 years.
Yeah.
I was like, it doesn't line up for my schedule, but I know Tom might be going to that one in Detroit.
I think Tom is going to go. Yeah.
But Tandy was like the last kind of thread line of the original
ELO. He was.
And I'm curious because when it turned into Jeff Lynne's ELO, if that was a contract dispute maybe with Tandy or with the other members.
It was with the other members. So it's pretty much well documented that when the rights to the name went to Jeff Lynne, but then the other guys in the band that were the orchestra, Mick Kaminsky and Bev and Kelly Grocott and all those guys wanted to do their own thing, so they became the orchestra, and then they became ELO Part 2. This whole legal mumbo jumbo thing with the name and who has the rights to use the name.
So circling back, there's kind of a bridge between ELO and the Moody Blues because Bevan was part of the early incarnation with some of the early OG members, along with I think Denny and maybe Ray Thomas. So
and they were all from Birmingham. You see, Birmingham. Yeah. They all came from Birmingham. All those guys, even Ozzy Osbourne. But the Moody's, ELO, they all came from that one city in England, in Birmingham.
Well, Bevan drummed for Black Sabbath.
Yep.
In '83.
Yeah.
That was when the Deep Purple singer joined Black Sabbath.
Yeah.
So it was quite. They all knew each other in Birmingham. I guess that's it's one of the bigger towns, but for musically, it was a pretty small town. They all knew each other, but yeah.
If you're into learning about the ELO and the history of ELO, I highly recommend you seeking this book out called Unexpected Messages: The Story of ELO, The Move, Jeff Lynne, Roy Wood, Bevan, and including all the members and related artists and projects with the complete worldwide discography. Now, it's a little outdated now. I'll put the link to it on my website, but it's pretty thorough. It's mainly all a history. It's not really photographic. It's just very detailed in family tree, who joined and when, and stuff like that. But it's the most comprehensive book on ELO I've ever seen. So I will put a link. You have to actually contact the author, and then he'll tell you what it'll cost to ship. But I mean, it is the most thorough.
So that's print on demand, or is that still okay?
I believe it's print on demand, but it's got an entire discography. I mean, all the side people that worked with ELO, you name it. The legal dispute over the name.
Okay.
We've even got the little section on the Wilburys there, obviously. You see.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty good book, and I'll put the link to that on there. But Richard Tandy was a brilliant musician, and I knew the name, but couldn't put a face to the name. And then when you watch that documentary and you see how skilled that guy, how he was, and what a great piano player he was, check him out. Look at his comments on that Mr. Blue Sky documentary. And I think it's nice to see somebody from the original band kind of side with Jeff with all that legal stuff over the name. That's why it's now Jeff Lynne's ELO. It's not really Electric Light Orchestra. It's Jeff Lynne's ELO, which, listen, no disrespect to the members of ELO. Those guys were the core of the band, their sound, the symphonic stuff, and they played those instruments well. But it all was in the head of the guy who wrote the stuff.
Yeah.
Jeff Lynne is a genius, okay? And he was like, look, just like Brian Wilson, this is how it sounds. You have to play it like this. It's in my head. Make it sound like this.
Yeah.
And Richard Tandy knew that. And it was nice to see those two kind of reconnect there towards the end when Jeff had this kind of rebirth. You were talking about that before we started recording. Speak to that a little bit, David, with the rebirth of Jeff Lynne in the public consciousness and why.
So Jeff had a 2001 U.S. tour that got canceled, and they just did a couple recordings that
had tickets to it too.
And
got canceled.
So it might have been that summer. I think it was like pre 9/11. And I'm not sure if it didn't sell well. Maybe they booked too big of arenas, but he hadn't been out in tour maybe almost 20, 25 years at that point. And but during that time, you see a lot of these movies from Hollywood and you hear a lot of ELO songs. And I think it kind of brought that sound to the public. And they're like, what is that? And they dug deeper and like, oh, that's ELO. And so I think from like 2001 to 2011, nothing was really going on,
Wow.
And I think I bought like a complete CD box set. So I had a bunch of bonus tracks on some of the CD albums. But then around 2012, like he released like a greatest hits Mr. Blue Sky re-recorded
he re-recorded all of them, yeah,
with him and Tandy. And then he released his Armchair album, a couple of solo albums,
Long Wave,
and then so that was back in print, and then the documentary, which eventually got released as a bonus on the Blu-ray of his
Wembley
tour.
Bust.
Yeah, and I think 2014. But Jeff had always been in our consciousness, relating, to the Wilburys and then the anthology stuff.
Paul, sure.
Paul, and anthology and the Flaming Pie, and so he was always in our world, but the rest of the world didn't really catch on to him, until like they heard the songs again.
Well, we started hearing Mr. Blue Sky in films and TV commercials, and well, who is that guy? And we all knew, like, damn, it would be great for this guy to get back out there and tour, and that kind of I'm glad that's kind of what we wanted. What's kind of what we want for the Moody's now.
Yeah,
we got for Jeff Lynne, and here's this kind of rebirth of this branding of Jeff Lynne's ELO, and he comes out with 2 solo albums, Alone in the Universe, which was a great record.
Yeah,
great record. When I Was a Boy is a great song, and then he had the follow up to that as well.
2019,
and with 2019, which of course is escaping the name of me at the moment. It was good, but it wasn't as good as the first one. What the hell? From Out of Nowhere. That's what it's called. Right.
Yeah.
Good, but not as good as Alone in the Universe. I thought that was a great record. I even bought the vinyl of that. So he gets, he gets all this attention now. He's touring. I got to see him at Radio City Music Hall, with, as I said, with Richard Tandy. And it's just, people have said who saw him is like, he doesn't really do that much talking. It's like just the music as you know it on the record. He doesn't deviate too much. It's just as you hear it, that's how he plays it live. It's like that. So it's not, some people say it's a little flat because he's just playing you, the songs as you know them.
Yeah. And then digging deeper into his world, because I kind of discovered the band Chicago last year, like early Chicago.
Oh, okay.
And I go, and I'm watching the Chicago documentary.
Yep.
And I'm also watching the documentary on their guitar player.
Terry Kath.
And I'm like, hang on. So I'm watching this documentary put on, I think his daughter produced it and it was interviewing his mom. And I'm looking up his mom. And I go, wait a minute. Wait, Terry Kath's daughter, stepdad is Keither Sutherland. And then, wait, Terry Kath's ex-wife is now married to Jeff Lynne. Because I'm like, why is Jeff Lynne in this documentary? I'm like, this is just like,
yes,
this world is like combined, and like interesting. So Jeff Lynne's wife is Terry Kath's ex-wife.
Ex-wife. You want to hear? You want to hear something? Another thing, just to make it full circle.
Yeah.
John Lodge's daughter Emily married John Davison, who's the current lead singer of Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. They got married a couple of years ago.
Wow.
But yeah, so
and then Jeff Lynne's current wife, Terry Kath's ex-wife, grew up in Michigan. I'm like, what is going on? Because she's like, yeah, I'm my friend from Detroit, and I'm like, wow, it's just it's one of those serendipity kind of things in life. You're like, interesting. So
yeah,
that's a little side story, but
for sure. If you're listening now, ELO, are you totally immersed in their discography like you are with the movie?
I used to. I played the shit out of El Dorado back when I was like 14, 15.
Yeah.
I loved that front to back. I was more into them maybe 10, 12 years ago. I bought all Jeff Lynne's old solo albums when they got reissued on CD and the current stuff.
Yep.
I need to dive back into it because it's good. It's like when I discovered Alan Parsons' Project, I'm like, okay, maybe that's like it kind of was a trajectory of ELO to me in terms of similar styles. After this interview, I might just bust out some albums because they're great. Because there's this one instrumental song from ELO. It reminds me of an Elton John song. It's an instrumental. Fire on
High.
High.
Fire on High.
That might be one of my favorite songs ever.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And that's a band that, again, started out very more proggier. Early ELO with Bev Bevan was very heavy, was much more, it was not as sunny and poppy as what we have kind of turned it into. But there's some good stuff on that early ELO stuff. 10538 Overture. It's all, but I think overall, I mean, start to finish, for me, it's either a new world record or Out of the Blue, the double LP. I mean, although I tell you what, Time and Secret Messages I've been giving much more attention to in the last few years. Secret Messages actually got a re-release on vinyl only because Secret Messages was supposed to be a double LP in '83.
That's right.
And it didn't come out. And then a year or two ago, it came out that the repurposed 2LP came out. And I must say, Secret Messages over the last 4 or 5 years probably become one of my favorite go-to ELO albums. And that was supposed to have the tribute, that long lost Beatles Forever track on it, but it didn't make it. He wrote a track called Beatles Forever right after John died, and it didn't make this one either. That's out there on bootleg though. You can hear that on YouTube. You can also hear too, I mean, if you really want to dive down deep, there is a performance of ELO shortly after Lennon was assassinated, and he's singing A Day in the Life, and he can't almost even get through it. Let's search that up. I've heard that before. That's pretty moving. Yeah, because they played it.
But yeah, he entered my life as soon as I kind of was enthralled in the Beatles in the 90s
because of the connection, the anthology connection.
And I'm like, wait, and then he's on Flaming Pie,
right?
As a pretty heavy member on a lot of stuff on the tracks.
I love that documentary where he's talking about just being with the Beatles and hanging with them and listening to stories, and he's like, you want me to do it? Sure, I'll sit and produce. I'll do whatever you do. I'm so happy for him because to be asked to be a part of that, and you think about what he did for the time with Free as a Bird and Real Love was remarkable. Now I know it's 30 years later, so it could be, but I mean that was pretty special for 94, 95. What he did, you remember it?
Oh, absolutely. They used as much of the technology that was available to take a cassette and filter it enough to basically put it on a multi-track, and then just reading on all the stuff on Now and Then.
Oh, but you've been, you're like
some of the literature and what they, him and Mark Mann were doing, from a technical perspective was just like, Jeff Lynne gets notoriety to be very like robotic, maybe on the drums, but like there's
Yeah.
a method to his madness, because it just what they had to do to put John's voice in time and sync on the Now and Then stuff was just like, oh wow. I mean, there was a lot of work that went on. So in a 2-year period, yeah, Jeff Lynne was just like, he was kind of like the Peter Jackson of then. Now, like
Well, for what they could do, because he was pretty, he was like, okay, Jeff's the guy that could make this work,
yeah.
So uh, I'm glad that he came into their world to do that, and then we have to thank George for that, really. And I know Paul was like, well, he's kind of more George's guy, but Paul was able to coexist with him, and that.
Hey, come on, help me with my new album.
And he's great on that Mr. Blue Sky documentary when he talks about Now and Then. He's like, I'm going to go in with Jeff one day and finish it, and then we got it. But Jeff wasn't part of this. And I often wonder if they, out of respect, would have been like, hey, Jeff, come on in and like work with us on this. But to see Now and Then finished, but they didn't probably. That's okay, and I'm sure he's happy with Now and Then because he worked on it too.
Yeah, his production's there that you at least on the 95 stuff. I'm glad they did what they did with the song Now, because reading about what Ringo was saying for the drums, it would have been similar to like Freeze a Bird, very sampled drums.
Right.
And Ringo, this is probably the most flowing drumming from Ringo on a Beatles song in 50 years, it wasn't so like Freeze a Bird, very kind of robotic,
plotting, like a plotting beat.
Yeah. But Jeff Lynne is someone that needs to be celebrated, and yeah, he's going out on his last tour, and hopefully he still makes records, because that's what he does.
I hope so.
He lives in the Hollywood Hills, kind of like Ringo, and he has a great studio.
He's got a great home studio. Again, watch that documentary, Mr. Blue Sky. It's on Apple. It's on everything. You can rent it. That will give you an insight into Jeff Lynne and a celebrated look at Jeff Lynne, and a documentary that was long overdue, and is the reason why it was the impetus that we got what we've gotten over the last 15 years to be recognized and celebrated, and touring and getting a chance to see him twice, and I'll be seeing him again in September, so for the third time. So check it out, and I think that will do it, my friend. You got anything else you want to add?
I could go over some of the concerts I got lined up, but
go ahead. We got a couple more minutes.
All right.
What do you got?
So I'll be seeing Neil Young in 2 weeks.
Very cool.
Pine Knob. So I know Tom had mentioned that. So get a hold of me, Tom.
Is he going too? Or no?
I don't know. Okay. So I got a lawn ticket. So join me, Tom. And then what else do I got? I got Roger Daltrey in June.
What's he doing? Is he doing Tommy, or is he just doing his?
So he's probably doing some of that stuff, but it's like a combination of some solo stuff he hasn't played in a while, some Who stuff he hasn't played, Q&A apparently. I don't know how they're going to coordinate that.
Okay.
And then I have Graham Nash in August at a little theater.
Very cool.
Suburb of Detroit, yeah. And I saw Graham Nash in 2019.
He puts on a very nice show. He's got a nice band, and I saw him right down the road 2 summers ago give a free concert in the park.
Nice. And then who else am I seeing? I'm seeing Robin Trower in October.
Yeah, I'll be at that show too. Now, that's going to be interesting for Procol, but I wonder what he's going to do. Probably,
Yeah,
Bridge of Sighs, I'm sure.
Yeah. No, well, there's a 50th anniversary set coming out on that, I think, in a couple weeks. Check that out. What else am I seeing? That's it from the old timers, I think.
The old timers.
Yeah.
Hey, but they're still the OGs. They're still the OGs,
Oh, yeah.
right? So, yeah, I've got Anderson. I've got John Anderson twice. Total Mass Retain, which is my buddy's Yes Tribute band, and they're really good. I'm losing track of the concerts now. I'm not seeing Steve Hatton. No, Robin Trower in October as well in New Jersey. I'm going to. I think that's it for now.
I'm seeing Adrian Belew do the an early '80s album of King Crimson, and he's touring with Danny Carey Tool, Steve Vai,
Oh,
and Tony Levin on bass.
there you go.
And so I might see Tony Levin with the Stickmen in July. He's coming to a very small club.
I've heard that they're very good, Stickmen.
Yes, I saw a similar side project of that last year without Tony. I was supposed to see them a couple years ago, but I was just busy with work. But maybe I'll go to that club if you could sign a couple of my John Lennon albums.
Yeah.
But, yeah. So
Cool.
yeah.
All right. Well, as far as two legs, this is our weekend off. We'll be back in May with a full slate of shows as well. We've talked about that on there. What else? We're going to have Luca Perazzi on during the month of May discussing the new book that he just published, Band on the Run, the story of a classic album. We're going to have a couple of friends on of the show recapping McCartney concert from 2007 at the Highline Ballroom with the Tom and James Liverani and Joe Mantaneo. And we will probably squeeze in somewhere along the line a episode with Adrian and or Alan Kozin for our iconic song series, and that will round out May for two legs. So that is about it, my friend. David, thank you for coming on today and talking.
My pleasure.
And
thank you.
And mostly Moody's and a little Jeff Lynne, and it all ties together. You see, it all fits somewhere. Whether there's a connection that brings them all together, it's usually the Beatles. See, that's why it always starts with them. So, David Gargolino, thank you for coming on my show today. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Andy.
Take care, everybody.